number 5 guitar songs of all time.
Way to do
Rolling-
7 minus 2, Paulie.
5. Got
Okay.
it. Rolling Stones' Brown Sugar is number 5 on the best guitar songs of all time, according to Billboard magazine.
Okay. Next segment, you'll do 4.
4, thank
Okay,
you. I
there we
can
are.
do that.
Okay.
If I can do it on my
We've
fingers.
got 5 more left. 4 more left. Yeah, there we are.
All right, Matt. Syracuse is back from Duke. It was a trip that didn't go quite as well as they wanted to. What was your takeaway from the Duke game?
Well, we're 7 and 6 on the guitar list. I haven't been able to listen so far.
Eddie Van Halen did something.
I was going to say Van Halen, Hagar, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton.
What was the first one, Paulie? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Paulie just learned that Paul McCartney is left-handed. He also just learned that you write with your left hand. We've learned a lot of things today.
You know who I probably just learned that he's only been sitting next to me for 20 years.
That's what I said. That's why you haven't. That's why you haven't bumped into each other for the last 25
exactly
years.
Right. You know who I noticed also has similar traits to me? He's a little bit better an athlete. I noticed, when the CBS pans the desk of analysts and there's 100 people there on the halftime show, Phil Simms also writes with his left hand and obviously was a right-handed quarterback, right-handed passer.
Okay.
And I didn't look on the other side. Boomer Esiason, left-handed quarterback. Which hand does he write with? So that's an intriguing start. What was my takeaway from the Duke game? Duke's better. You go on the road. You really have to play well to beat them. You can't give them pretty much anything and expect to win, especially there. And that's what happened. I mean, I thought to be there in the first half was about right, down 2 at halftime. But when you're down 2 at halftime and Duke hasn't made a 3 and Kyle Filipowski hasn't done anything, you're down more than 2 because Duke's going to bounce back from that, and that's exactly what happened.
Where are we at on the Chris Bell, Justin Taylor concern level right now? Is this a couple bad weeks, or are you feeling bigger issues at the moment?
I would say pretty concerned. I'm very concerned about Chris Bell's body language and some of the things he does to kind of occupy himself and communicate non-verbally. I think that's a major issue. How much it impacts him and his teammates and whatever, I'm not exactly sure. What the root of it is, I'm not 100% sure, but that's not good. I think he's obviously a very good shooter. He's a one-dimensional player, and I assume you guys are going to get to this about shaking up the lineup. One reason that I personally wouldn't advocate shaking up the lineup is I think you find out early whether Bell's having his night or not, and you either leave him in and he gets extended run or he doesn't. And I just don't think the couple of guys that are underserving the starting lineup would be, you'd start with Bell and McLeod. I just don't know that they would be very effective at all coming off the bench, but let's see. Maybe it does come to that. Back to Taylor. Taylor at least rebounds. He doesn't create his own shot, so it's hard for him to kind of get going. Neither Taylor nor Bell get to the free throw line. We kind of make a running joke of how rare that comes about. So I don't know what it's going to take to get them going. They're obviously better players than they have performed so far, so there's room for improvement there. I think you'll see it, potentially in both. But yeah, I would say the concern is at least mild right now.
Are you worried with the Taylor that he can't create a shot and he isn't getting shots? Like there's, we've always talked about the setting picks and the pick and pop. He isn't getting shots either.
Yeah, I think he's the type who he just doesn't assert himself offensively. I'm really pleased with the way he rebounds for his size, and he's one of the guys, we talked about this off the air during the game the other night. He doesn't squawk, for whatever reason or one thing or another. He's not one who's kind of griping to the officials and that type of thing. I think he just goes out there and gives you his best effort. It's just not really happening for him on the offensive end. It didn't happen for him in the Hawaii trip, right? So he was 0 for the island the first 2 games, and then against Chaminade, they gave him the ball and set him up like every trip down the floor for 5 minutes, and he ended up getting into double figures in that game. I do think he, and for that matter, Bell, maybe you find a way to kind of call their number to get them set up with shots, whether, that's the, I'm not an X and O person here. I'm not going to do the coach's job with that. But, I mean, whether that's a, side pick and roll or whatever it's going to take to get those guys an opportunity to get decent shots or in the transition game, what have you. I think if they start to see a couple more fall, they're better producers for you. But they definitely need that. I mean, right now there's too many non-scorers on the floor at any given time, or certainly non-shooters. Because, Bell's the best shooter and Taylor's probably the second best shooter, and they're not really performing at that level right now. And when I would like to see maybe Kyle Cuff in there a little more, but right now they just don't have the combination where they're going to be making a lot of shots and a lot of three-point shots.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we're all thinking. Do you shake up the lineup? Obviously, the lineup gets shaken up almost immediately after the game starts these days with the bench. I had Griff on yesterday. He called, what did he call Malik and Quadir and Benny? He calls them the bomb squad now. He sends them in, and they get going. Like, how important is the start of the game, I guess, is the realistic question here, because the other guys are, they're playing most of the minutes right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's important, absent the fact that, like, here's what I can't figure out why Mooney Hema doesn't win more opening tip-offs. And so you could say that'd be a counter to the argument that I have of, hey, you may as well start him for that, but he's not even doing that. So that right now is a little problematic for me. He's got to give more, and I just don't know that playing him off the bench is the answer to getting more. They're not falling behind. Like, they're not losing these games because they get buried in the first couple of minutes. I don't think it's because they have the wrong starting lineup. The only games they've lost this year, they lost to teams that are better. They're going to have to find a way to beat one or two of those teams over the course of the season, and then take advantage against everybody else. So I don't really think of it as a lineup issue. It is peculiar, especially based on what we've been used to around here for the last several decades, that right now the biggest contributors are coming off the bench. But I don't think that's necessarily wrong.
Matt Park is with us. Should we ask Matt a football question, Paulie?
Sure.
Yeah, so we're going to play back some of this Kyle McCord sound here from the podcast he did recently. Are you excited for the college football playoff next year, Matt? Like we're there already, right? It's hard to compute all this talk that's going on. Right? Yeah, we're going.
Yeah, 12 teams. Let's get the bracket going and let's line it up.
Like, how do you, I guess, it's fun to hear them talking like this. It's hard to compute with, what we've watched our whole lives, or certainly the last, 25 years or so. Had there been a playoff in the, 90s or late 80s, it would have been a different thing. Like, is this good to, it's good to hear. It's fun to think about. How realistic is any of this stuff right now?
Well, I don't know that it is, but I think, to me, what's the biggest change in the culture of the program in the last month plus? To me, it's, and this is not a condemnation of Dino Babers or his staff or whatever. I just think it has to do with he was an incumbent and here for 8 years. And, Brian, you and I and Paulie, we've been around for a lot more than 8. You get sort of a vantage point where you're aware of the obstacles and the built-in sort of disadvantages, and maybe a little too either reliant on them or hiding behind them, or they become more than they need to be. Everybody who's coming in new, they don't know the whole story. They're like, we know it. They don't pay any attention to it or care about it. So they're coming in talking, well, why not us? And I think that naivete or whatever you want to attribute it to, that bullheadedness, that enthusiasm, that blank, serves well. It served Fran Brown well for his entire coaching career. Kyle McCord has played at the highest level of college football and doesn't know any better. Certainly at Ohio State, they're thinking playoff every single year. The top, 4, 5, 6 programs that have made up the CFP for the last handful of years, that's their expectation. So I think it's fresh. It's a little far-fetched based on what we've, come to know around here, but they ought to be significantly improved. Why don't we start thinking about 7 and 8 wins first, and let's see how that feels.
Yeah, I'd say the one nugget Kyle dropped in that podcast was like, whoa. Next year will be the first time since he's been in 8th grade he starts a college football game where his lead wide receiver is not named Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a pretty good life to live right there.
Yeah, that's incredible. And, obviously we've always kept an eye on Marvin Harrison. And on one hand, it's a little bit of a sore subject. On the other hand, you wish him well and all of that. And Oronde Gadsden isn't Marvin Harrison. That's unfair. But
he's pretty good.
I do think, yeah, he's pretty good. And I do think that pairing breathes a kind of life and enthusiasm into both of them. And we all watch the NFL and all this. You got to have some answer. You got to have a pitch and catch combo. You got to have weapons on the outside. And I think everything that we're talking about has trended in the right direction since the end of the regular season. So I'm certainly not going to be one to douse the enthusiasm here. I think we're all excited to see how it actually plays out.
All right, Matt, thanks for your time. And When My Guitar Gently Weeps was number 7. So it's Van Halen, Eruption, My Guitar Gently Weeps, Brown Sugar. And we'll go from there. I can't spoil it for the listeners.
We'll see if he can count by the next segment.
I'll do those.
All right. Thanks a lot, Matt. There you go.
The Devil, I bet, is on there, right?
No.
No.
This is a very controversial list. There's not.
I'm not the music guy that you are.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's no way you win in this list. When you make it, you're going to get backlash.
Like the 7 greatest guitar songs the last 50 years. Yeah, I think a few are going to get left out.
Before that, Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Stateboro Blues by the Allman Brothers, and Stairway to Heaven was number 8.
Kurt Cobain, lefty guitar player.
Okay, I get it. I
don't know. I Googled it.
It's not the first time I said something stupid on the radio.
I Googled it like you Google things, Paulie, and I found it.
I don't Google things.
You Google some things.
Ponce de Leon.
Yeah, Google that.
I'm going to do it on this computer during the break and see what comes up.
Oh, God, the show's going to be over. The computer's going to break.
Well, that means, according to everybody else's answer, is that it will predict what other people have been Googling on this computer.
As I said, the show's going to be over. The computer's going to break.
All right, we'll take a quick time out. We'll come back. Hour number 2. We'll hear from Kyle McCord on ESPN Radio Syracuse. You can go on McHughSportsTalk.com.